Exposed, the billionaire's incredible transformation after meeting her, a heartwarming journey. Jake Thompson stood on the threshold of his old life, the twinkle of his billionaire's empire glimmering like a distant star behind him. Returning to the small Midwestern town where he grew up felt like stepping into a time machine, but his heart ached with something he couldn't put his finger on. Was it nostalgia? Regret? Or was it just the hollow echo of success that rang louder than the clinking of champagne glasses at his lavish parties? As he stepped onto Main Street, memories flooded like the gentle breeze. He could almost hear his mother hustling through life, her laughter still ringing in his ears. But there was little left of that tight-knit community he loved, the familiarity felt faded and frayed. The town seemed burdened, overtaken by the weight of corporate greed and economic shadows. He had escaped, pursued wealth, and in chasing the elusive dream, lost sight of what truly mattered. It was at the community health fair that everything changed. That's when he met Clara. She was the heart of the town, a nurse with a nurturing spirit, balancing her job, her daughters, and the growing demands of a hospital on the brink of collapse. Her hair was tied back with a hint of exhaustion glowing beneath layers of warmth, and her smile was like sun breaking through clouds. When she spoke about the community, her eyes sparkled with passion. But beneath that spark was skepticism, and she eyed Jake carefully, intuition screaming at her that he may not have their best interests at heart. He proposed an investment in the hospital that promised to revive its waning spirit, but the room fell silent, tension thickening the air. Clara's words cut through the murmurs of doubt. "We don't need more business strategies. We need care, compassion, we need people who really understand us," she shot back, her cheeks flushed with protective fierceness. Jake felt a sting in confusion. This was not the response he expected. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days turned into weeks, Jake volunteered alongside Clara at various community events. He saw families enjoying picnics, children splashing in the park, and seniors sharing stories on porch swings. For the first time, Jake felt the heartbeat of the town he had once tried to escape. But his ambition clashed with Clara's vision. Each encounter left him more aware of the fabric of this community, woven with love but frayed by neglect. The tipping point came unexpectedly. One evening, Clara rushed into the hospital with tears in her eyes, revealing one of her patients, a beloved figure in the community, was about to lose care due to a misalignment in finances linked to Jake's plans. The desperation in her voice pierced his heart. It felt like a mirror reflecting everything he'd neglected, a stark reminder of the lives his numbers could impact. Caught in a whirlwind of doubt and ambition, Jake was faced with an impossible choice. Would he advance a lucrative partnership, securing his legacy but risking the very essence of the community? Or would he embrace the needs of those who had once cradled his dreams, standing in the shadows of his fame with nothing but genuine will to care? Just as clarity began to seep through the chaos, a thunderstorm swept into town, threatening the fragile hope Jake had begun to feel. The winds howled outside, and as the community rallied together, he stood amidst the chaos with Clara, both of them examining their hearts and the uncertain road ahead. Would he find redemption here, or retreat back into the shadows of his past ambitions? The questions loomed heavy in the air, as the storm raged, marking a new chapter in Jake's life. The rain lashed against the windows like a symphony of chaos, mirroring the storm brewing inside Jake's heart. Clara stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a clipboard filled with patient details. The hospital hummed with an anxious energy, a stark contrast to the quiet comfort of his former life. As he watched Clara move from room to room, her determined spirit ignited something within him. The sense of urgency she carried was contagious, and for the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility beyond himself. Jake's thoughts spiraled. He recalled the sterile boardrooms, the graphs and figures that once felt like the pillars of his success. Numbers couldn't encapsulate the lives dependent on the very decisions he now held in his hands. It was beyond profit margins and market strategies, it was about compassion, the kind Clara embodied so effortlessly. Clara's voice cut through his reverie, strained but clear. This isn't about investments. It's about lives. We need to fix this. Her eyes searched his, urging him to see beyond his own ambitions. That moment stripped away the layers of his wealth, revealing the vulnerable man beneath, a man longing for purpose. The thunder cracked overhead, a natural punctuation to their shared realization. He took a breath, his heart racing. What do we need to do? His question was barely above a whisper, but Clara heard it loud and clear. There's a community meeting tomorrow evening. If we can gather support, show them that we believe in this together, we may save the hospital, she urged. Jake nodded, determination replacing doubt. He had spent too long in the shadows, chasing a vision that felt increasingly hollow. Now, he wanted to act. United with Clara, he hoped to tap into the very essence of the community, the spirit that once lifted him as a child, the spirit he longed to revive in a new and meaningful way. That night, as the storm raged on, Jake pored over details with Clara, crafting a plan that would not only appease the stakeholders but resonate with heart, echoing the voices of those who had raised him. He couldn't let the community down, not again. As dawn broke, drenched in soft hues of orange and hinting at a clearer day ahead, they stood together, preparing their presentation. There was no flashing logo, no grand promises of financial gain, only genuine concern and a proposal to breathe life back into the hospital. The community hall was filled to the brim that evening. Every face he saw was etched in his memory, evoking a warmth of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Clara stood beside him as he finally took the floor, his heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through his body. Thank you for being here. I know my past proves how easy it is to overlook the human side of healthcare, he began, glancing at Clara, who nodded in encouragement. But I'm here because I want to change. I want to invest in this community not just with dollars, but with heart. He paused, feeling the weight of their collective gaze. Murmurs of concern mixed with hope reverberated through the room. Just then, an elderly man stood from the back. And what do you really want, Mr. Thompson? We've heard these pitches before. His voice was rough but carried an undercurrent of hope, digging into Jake's core like a striking bolt of lightning. Clara squeezed Jake's hand tightly, whispering, "You have to be honest." The words swirled in his mind. He had spent a lifetime building walls, but this community was worth tearing them down. Jake took a deep breath, vulnerability creeping in. I want to be part of us again. To build a future that honors everyone here, he confessed, vulnerability mingling with sincerity. I've changed, and I want to help. Together. The room fell silent, the shifting energies palpable. Would they accept him? Would they see past his past? As eyes glistened with hope and skepticism mixed again with curiosity, all Jake could think about was what the community could become, a union of compassion and resilience, re-energized against the very storm that challenged them. Then, the storm outside began to subside, and for the first time, he could hear the soft whispers of something new forming. Would he be able to stand firm as the community called on him to walk beside them, more than a nameless billionaire? As a wave of voices began to rise up in the hall, both support and doubt blended into an uncertain melody, paving the way for a new beginning that teased a new kind of transformation. Jake realized this was merely the beginning of a journey he never thought he'd embark on, a journey steeped in unity, healing, and most importantly, love. What would he do when faced with moments of doubt from those he wanted to help the most? What lay ahead as the path grew murky, intertwining hearts and ambitions in ways he could have never imagined? Jake stood at the podium, the air thick with tension. It felt like an eternity since the elderly man had challenged him. He scanned the room, searching for the faces of those he wanted to reach. Clara's unwavering support shone like a beacon beside him, her calmness seeping into him, grounding him in his moment of need. After a beat, a woman in the front row raised her hand. "I believe you want to help, but how? What will you actually do?" Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the unease threaded through it. Jake's pulse quickened. "We're working on initiatives," he said, urging his thoughts to flow freely. "Not just to keep this hospital open. I want to create programs focusing on preventative care, mental health resources, and community outreach. We can host wellness fairs, hold workshops, and involve local talents. This hospital should reflect the strength and spirit of this community with your voices guiding us." Gradually, murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd, mixing with the lingering skepticism. Clara's eyes widened just a bit as he spoke. Hopeful statements were turning the tide, inching closer to what felt like acceptance. "Preventative care is important, but we need the funds to run those programs," another voice, deeper and more skeptical, joined in. "What are you prepared to commit?" Jake swallowed hard, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing against his chest. "I will commit my resources, my time, and most importantly, my heart. I will not abandon this community again." He meant it, every word coming straight from that vulnerable core he had discovered only moments before. "Let us form a committee to generate ideas that work for all of us, to write grants together, to ask the right questions. We need to invest in our health, not just dollar signs." Clara slipped her fingers through Jake's. He could feel the warmth radiate from her touch. She looked into his eyes, igniting an ember of confidence within him. He took another step into the unknown and offered, "I know I'm asking for your faith. And I don't expect it to come easily. I wouldn't expect it from myself. But I promise to earn that trust." With every word, the atmosphere shifted. He saw slight nods, shoulders relaxed, and even a few hesitant smiles emerge in the crowd. The storm outside faded into the background, replaced by a gradual swell of hope, tentative but present. A young man in the back stood up. "If you mean it, let us do this together." His shout sparked a quiet cheer and applause that started to ripple through the hall. That collision of voices ignited a fire inside Jake. As applause filled the space, Clara beamed at him, and Jake couldn't help but respond with a tentative smile. Maybe, just maybe, they were on a path to create something incredible together. But even amidst the applause, Jake felt a pang of fear. He wasn't naive enough to think this would be easy. He had seen the tides of public opinion turn swiftly. He understood how fragile trust could be, especially when voices echoed with doubt. The applause began to settle, morphing into conversations that buzzed around the room. He caught snippets of excitement coupled with cautious optimism. They were leaning forward, wanting to believe, and yet, Jake sensed the weight of past wrongs still dragging behind him. "I'm glad you're here, Mr. Thompson," said a woman seated at the forefront. "But can we count on you when things get tough? We've seen people come and go." Her sincerity cut deep. "You absolutely can," he vowed, his voice steady. "Together, we'll face those challenges head-on. Whatever it takes." But what Jake didn't voice was the growing dread creeping in the back of his mind. The uncertainty of facing pushback, the possibility of failing this second chance in a community that had once felt like home. As people began to filter out, he caught Clara's eye. She stepped closer. "You did great," she praised softly, yet he could see the tension etched in her features too. The battle ahead may have just begun. He nodded, but inside he questioned if he truly was ready to lead them through the storm still looming on the horizon. What if their shared ambitions collided with impending doubts? Would he rise to the occasion or crumble beneath the pressure? The night held a promise of transformation, but Jake knew the journey would be far from easy. In that moment of hope, lingering fears whispered, were they really fighting for something beautiful, or had he just painted a mirage? Jake stepped down from the podium, feeling the weight of 100 eyes still focused on him. For a moment, the applause had subsided, replaced by an atmosphere thick with potential and uncertainty. Clara remained by his side, her presence a comforting anchor amidst the tempest of conflicting thoughts swirling in his mind. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern etched across her features. "Honestly? I'm not sure," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "What if they don't believe in me when the dust settles? What if—" "Stop," she interrupted, placing a hand gently on his arm. "You've set a spark in them. Trust that it will catch fire." A flicker of hope ignited within him, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that every promise was a glass held precariously above a chasm. One misstep and everything could shatter. "Let us focus on what's next," he said, trying to regain his bearings. "We need to follow up with everyone who showed interest. I'll draft an email to schedule our first meeting on Monday." "Good idea." Clara's eyes lit up. "We'll need to keep the momentum going." As they exchanged ideas, a crowd began to gather around the front rows, still buzzing with enthusiasm. Familiar faces appeared, and soon Jake found himself caught in the current of conversation. A man approached, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Jake, I want to help organize those wellness fairs you mentioned. I know a few local businesses that could contribute." Gratitude washed over him. "That's amazing. I'd love to hear your ideas." Slowly, people began to share their thoughts, inspired by what Jake had said. They were ready to brainstorm, but lurking under the surface was an undercurrent of doubt that Jake couldn't ignore. He looked toward the exit where a few familiar faces lingered. People who had once trusted him, only to be left disappointed. The shadows of his past mistakes loomed larger as uncertainty turned to cold dread. "Hey, you alright?" Clara's voice broke through his reverie. She had noticed his distraction. I can't shake the feeling of being unworthy. What if this doesn't go as hoped? What if I fail them again?" "Jake," she said carefully, "you're not that person anymore. You've grown, and you're here, ready to fight for them." He wanted to believe her. As the evening wore on, Jake made a point to connect with as many people as he could. Gathering after gathering became a game of navigating both hope and caution. A woman recounted a story of her grandmother's struggles with healthcare, her voice trembled but remained resolute. It was moments like these that reminded him what they were fighting for. But after each interaction, other voices taunted him from the periphery, echoing reminders of past failures. Jake wondered if this community could truly move forward, trusting someone who had left and then returned. Eventually, Clara leaned into him, whispering, "Let's take a walk. I need to breathe away this energy." They stepped outside into the crisp night air. The stars twinkled overhead, and for a moment, Jake felt the weight lift. But when he looked into Clara's eyes, he recognized her concern mirrored his own. There was more to navigate than just building programs they needed to withstand the storms of the past and present. "Jake," Clara started, her gaze serious and unwavering, "what happens if people reject you? If doubts seep back in, what will you do?" He took a deep breath, feeling a chill run down his spine. "I won't run. I'll stand my ground. This time, it's different." Yet deep within, a new fear was emerging. What if standing his ground meant facing those he once let down? The very people who had lost patience for broken promises. They returned to the gathering, and when Jake looked out over the crowd, he saw both hope and skepticism. The flickers of potential were still fragile, dancing like those stars above. But underneath it all, he knew he had a battle ahead, not just for the hospital but for his own redemption. Just before heading inside, Clara squeezed his hand, grounding him once more. "Let's create something that can't be broken," she said, hope filling her voice. And that's when Jake knew they were standing on the brink of something monumental, but with every high, there would be a precipice to face. As they re-entered, the murmurs continued to rise, a cacophony of aspiration tempered with fear. What if he had to face the biggest challenge yet, his own reflection? The question burned in his thoughts: was he truly ready to fight, not just for the hospital, but for himself? Jake stepped back into the gathering, the warmth from inside wrapping around him like a blanket. But amid the kindness of familiar smiles and the hum of hopeful plans, his heart raced. Each face held potential support, yet he couldn't shake the trepidation gnawing at him. Clara leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Remember, you're not alone in this. We're all in it together." He nodded, grateful. The challenge ahead felt vast, but together, perhaps they could bridge the gaps of the past. Still, his mind danced with shadows of doubt. He scanned the room, catching a glimpse of Luke, an old friend turned skeptic. Would Luke see him as a betrayer who returned only to seek redemption without merit? "Jake!" A woman's voice cut through his thoughts. It was Marta, a local business owner he hadn't spoken to in ages. "I really loved what you shared earlier. I'd love to help with outreach for the wellness fairs." The spark in her eyes ignited a flicker of hope. "That would be fantastic. What do you have in mind?" As Marta shared her ideas, Jake felt invigorated. The passion she exuded was infectious, and little by little, it chipped away at the wall of doubt encasing him. "Maybe we could start by reaching out to schools," she suggested, her hands gesturing animatedly. "Kids are the future, right? If we can teach them about wellness from a young age, it sets the tone for their families." "Absolutely," Jake replied, feeling excitement bubble within him. That could be a game changer. As they continued brainstorming, more people drifted over, eager to share suggestions and express their support. Jake listened intently, fostering connections and a collaborative spirit that felt tangible. With each exchanged idea, he pieced together a vision for the community, a vision larger than himself. Yet, even during the rise of enthusiasm, Jake's heart couldn't forget his previous failures. The weight of his past loomed heavily, and as the conversations intensified around him, so did the whispers in his mind, reminding him of past disappointments. "Hey, you okay?" Clara's voice broke through. "Just thinking," he replied, forcing a smile. "It's overwhelming, you know. You're doing great. Just take it one step at a time." Her hand brushed against his, a steadying force amid the chaos. Taking a moment, he focused on Clara's words. The idea of one step at a time seemed so incredibly simple, yet so powerful. Perhaps that was exactly how he needed to approach his journey, not just with the community but within himself. "Could we perhaps introduce a mentorship program?" Someone chimed in from the growing crowd. "Pairing young people with experiences could really instill hope." "Yes. That's perfect," Jake responded, this time the enthusiasm leaping from him, erasing his last hesitations. They discussed how to connect local leaders to those needing guidance, weaving a safety net through relationships and support. But just as the energy soared, Jake's gaze landed on the exit where people had once wandered out disheartened. Weren't those the memories that haunted him still? "What if, Jake," Clara interrupted, a knowing look passing between them, "we can't change what happened yesterday. We can only build what's ahead." A deep breath eased some tension in his chest. "You're right." But as the evening wore on, the question remained: how do you prove to others and to yourself that you're worthy of trust again? As the gathering reached a crescendo of enthusiasm, Jake gathered everyone's attention. "Thank you for believing in this vision. Together, we break barriers. Together, we create change." Amid scattered applause, Clara beamed with pride beside him. Yet in his core, doubt lingered, reminding him that the past could claw back any moment, especially if he didn't guard against it. He looked out at the crowd, courage slipping through his fingers. What happens if the belief people placed in him was built on shaky ground? The thought haunted him, growing claws within. Just then, he noticed someone emerging from the shadows, a familiar face from his past, and Jake's heart raced. Could this be the moment his world would shatter or transform? With bated breath, he waited, not knowing if confrontation or catharsis awaited him next. Jake's breath caught in his throat as the figure approached. The crowd around him faded into a blur, their chatter becoming a muffled backdrop to the pounding of his heart. The familiar features crystallized into focus. It was Sarah, his childhood friend, the one person whose opinion had mattered more than anyone else's. The last time they met had been a year ago, just before he slipped away from everything. "Jake?" Her voice was softer now, laced with a mixture of surprise and wariness, as if she wasn't quite sure what to make of him after all this time. "Hey, Sarah." The words stumbled out of his mouth, not quite able to articulate the swirl of emotions that had risen when he saw her. She looked older, her eyes holding stories untold. They had shared laughter, dreams, and at one point, hurt. He stepped forward, wanting to close the distance, but then hesitated. The weight of their history loomed large between them. Would she see the man he hoped to be, or the one that had let her down? "Wow, it's been a while," she said, crossing her arms defensively. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I know." He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling exposed. "I'm trying to make things right, Sarah. I want to help." This he gestured at the gathering and the hopeful energy that filled the room. "This is part of it." She studied him for a long moment, and the silence stretched between them like a taut string. "You think you can just come back and fix everything?" "No. I mean, I don't know if I can fix everything. But I want to try. I missed it all." His voice cracked, sincerity spilling forth. "I missed you." Her expression softened, and for a brief moment, Jake allowed himself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a confrontation. Maybe it could lead to the understanding they both craved. "Jake," Sarah said, her tone shifting as she uncrossed her arms. "You really hurt people when you left. You left without a word. We all thought you." Her voice trailed off, pained memories flooding her features. "I thought he started, but she interrupted. Thought you could run away and it wouldn't matter. You didn't just disappear from us, you disappeared from yourself." She took a step closer, the vulnerability unraveling the distance between them. "Why should we trust you now?" His heart sank. Each word felt like a weight sinking into a deep ocean of regret. "Because I'm here now. Because I've had to face myself, and it hasn't been easy." The memories of loneliness and self-loathing washed over him. "I'm not asking for blind faith. Just a chance." Jake hoped there was something in his eyes that conveyed the desperation he felt, the desire to rebuild what had been lost. For a moment, Sarah's resolve looked as if it might bend. But just then, another voice broke through the tension, pulling their attention. It was Luke, stepping forward, his brow creased with skepticism. "Are you really here for change, or just for show?" Jake's heart raced, uncertainty flooding back. He felt like he was standing before a board, unprepared to defend himself. "I want to help. I want to prove my worth." "Please, just prove it," Luke interrupted, folding his arms. "Words won't cut it after what happened. You need to show us." Jake swallowed hard, the pressure of Luke's challenge hanging in the air. "Then let me," he said finally, finding a flicker of conviction buried deep within. "Let me show you. I'll demonstrate that I'm committed. Just give me the chance." The room held its breath, a chorus of watchful eyes now trained on him, some skeptical, others hopeful. The warmth and camaraderie from moments earlier felt distant as the weight of judgment settled in. And yet, within that weight, hope ignited anew. But would it be enough? Jake looked first at Clara, then at Sarah, and finally at Luke. He took a deep breath, resolved despite the fear circling within him. "Let us start this journey together, one step at a time," he declared. But then, just as relief began to wash over him, the door creaked open, and a chilling gust swept through the room. All heads turned, and Jake froze as a familiar figure, entered someone he'd never expected to see again, someone from the darkest chapter he had tried to escape. His heart raced with newfound fear. Would this person shatter his fragile hope or offer an unexpected lifeline? Jake felt the color drain from his face as the figure stepped inside. It was Andrea. From the way she navigated the crowd with cool confidence, it was evident she hadn't come to reconnect. She was here to make a scene, and he could sense the tension rising like a coiled spring. "Jake," she said, her voice honeyed with a cruel edge, "look who's back in town." Her gaze swept over the crowd, landing on Sarah and Luke. "You remember me, right? The girl who had to clean up the mess you left behind?" Jake clenched his fists, fighting against the tide of shame that threatened to overwhelm him. The room crackled with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and he could feel their eyes darting between him and Andrea, waiting to see how he'd react. "Why are you here?" he asked, grounding his voice despite the turmoil inside. It was the one question he needed an answer to, the one thing he hoped might peel back the layers of history wrapping around them both. "I'm here because I've heard a lot about the new Jake." She leaned in slightly, her smirk widening, the one trying to redeem himself. The crowd held its breath, each person more invested in Jake's response than before. He could sense Clara's anxious eyes, feel Sarah's unwavering gaze, and Luke's scrutinizing stare, all watching how he would handle this spectacular twist. "I'm not the same guy you knew," Jake replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. "I've changed, and I'm not afraid to face my past." Andrea chuckled softly, stepping closer, her presence suddenly suffocating. "But you can't escape it, can you? You didn't just leave us behind, you walked away from everything we fought for." Every word hit Jake like a punch. It was true, he had been a coward. But he wasn't that person anymore. He couldn't let her manipulate him, couldn't let her drag him back down into the depths where he'd lived for too long. "Maybe you're right," he said, his voice stronger now. "But I'm trying to build again, to make things right. Not just for you or anyone else, but for myself. And I'm not going to let the past define me." Andrea's eyes narrowed, and as the other voices in the room murmured in surprise, Jake noted the shifting dynamics. There was surprise, intrigue swirling around, they were actually curious to see where this was heading. "Is that so?" she said, clearly unsatisfied. "Let us see how long that lasts." With a flick of her long hair, she turned on her heel, ready to leave but stopped when Jake spoke again. "Wait," he called, feeling destiny nudging him forward. "You can't just walk away like this. If there's anything left in us, let us clear the air. I owe you that much, don't I?" As he spoke, he felt the air in the room shift again, clinging to the hope that maybe he could handle this and face his demons once and for all. But he could see the flicker in Andrea's eyes, she enjoyed this too much, and her silence was loaded with the weight of things left unsaid. The tension thickened, real and palpable. All eyes were on them, a theater of emotions stirring among the crowd. Jake glanced back at Sarah, who looked anxious yet hopeful, as if both supporting him and waiting to see how this confrontation would play out. And then he felt it. The resolve rising within him, like steam ready to burst. Whatever lay beneath was coming to the surface, and he was willing to confront it head-on. The real danger wasn't the others or even Sarah's forgiveness, it was the truth he had desperately tried to ignore. "Let us talk," he said, stepping toward Andrea. "Not just about what happened, but about who we are now. We deserve that chance, don't we?" An electric silence met his challenge as time hung suspended. The moment felt like a tipping point, a crossroads where paths could diverge or converge. Jake felt his heart pound as Andrea lingered, the crowd captivated by the unfolding drama. Would she accept his offer? Would this be the turning point or the final straw? The tension buzzed through the room, a silent promise waiting to be unraveled. And just then, Jake understood that the past and present were woven tighter than he'd imagined. Would he finally have the courage to confront it all? Andrea paused, her body language shifting as if weighing her options. For a heartbeat, Jake thought she might actually consider his invitation. The curiosity of the crowd felt like a spotlight, every whisper intoxicatingly alive. But then she let out a breathy laugh, the kind that twisted like a knife. Talk? She sneered. After everything? You think a simple conversation will fix what you broke? It stung, harder than Jake expected. Memories flashed through his mind, the arguments, the silent treatments, the way they used to laugh as if the world was theirs. He remembered the love, how vibrant it had once been, and how swiftly it had faded into resentment. Look, Andrea, I'm not asking for a quick fix. I want to understand. She interrupted, her tone laced with bitterness. You should have thought about that before you left. You don't get to play the hero now, not after disappearing when we needed you the most. The crowd indulged in a collective gasp, caught off guard by her outburst. Jake felt lost in the murmur, the old pain surfacing. He was just a man trying to make amends, but here he stood, stripped bare of his conviction. No one's asking for heroics, Andrea. But to pretend nothing ever happened? That's not realistic, he replied, fighting to keep his voice level. You think your little speeches will absolve you? She shot back, her eyes sharp as daggers. You can't undo the mess you made, Jake. You left me to handle it all on my own. Jake's heart twisted painfully. The memories surged back, moments when he could have stood firm, moments that still pained him. He had let her down. That fact stung more than her sharp words. Maybe I can't change the past, he acknowledged, his voice full of raw emotion. But I can try to make things right moving forward. You deserve that, don't you? Another ripple of intrigue went through the crowd, and he could feel Sarah's eyes on him, urging him on. Jake was gambling everything on a chance that might slip through his fingers. Andrea's features softened ever so slightly for a brief moment, revealing a glimpse of the woman he had once loved. Then, steeling herself again, she hardened her gaze. Let me tell you something, Jake. People don't change. They just learn how to hide their true selves better. You think you can dig deep enough to change the person you were? You'll never escape your own shadow. The air grew thicker, suffocating, and Jake felt every layer of hurt that had built between them. He had spent years trying to escape, both from his past and from the hurt he had caused. But standing here, ready to fight against that very history, he sensed something else. Maybe you're right, he admitted, his voice carrying a weight that rendered the room silent. But I refuse to let it drown me. I want a second chance not just to fix our past but to redefine who we are now. For a moment, Andrea looked almost sympathetic, pulling back the facade she had built. Then she took a single step back, the wall between them rising again. You think this is a game? That I'm just going to let you walk back into my life? Jake's heart raced. No, not a game. This is serious. I know it's messy, but if we could try to work through this together. I want to understand you. She stiffened, her defenses coming back up. And why would I give you that chance? After all the damage? Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the clamor of the crowd surged, drowning out their words. Someone whispered, "This is getting intense." Jake's grip on the moment tightened. "Because I believe in hope," he said, his voice steady and solid. "Even the tiniest flicker can light a path through the darkest night." And just then, he felt a glimmer of doubt in Andrea's eyes. Would she rise to the occasion or push him away entirely? The silence echoed with pregnant possibilities. Would this confrontation end in destruction or dare to lead to healing? Jake poised himself, ready for whatever might come next, his breath caught in his throat, as the next chapter of their lives teetered on the edge of uncertainty. Andrea's silence hung in the air like a thick curtain. The crowd, swayed by the tension, collectively held its breath, waiting. Jake's heart pounded, each beat echoing his determination. He could sense Andrea's internal struggle, the flicker of vulnerability almost hidden beneath her stern facade. "What, do you think you can just stir up old feelings and I'll forget everything?" She finally responded, her voice shaking slightly. For all the anger in her words, there was a hint of uncertainty, and Jake latched onto it. "No, I don't think feelings just vanish," he replied, his voice softer now. "But feelings can evolve. I believe that too." He took a step toward her, something deep inside him urging for connection. "Look, I don't expect you to forgive me today. I just want a chance to prove that I've changed and that I can be someone you can trust again." "Trust?" Andrea laughed bitterly. "What do you know about trust? You left when I needed you. Do you even know what that felt like?" Her eyes were fierce yet glimmered with a sadness that cut through him. "I didn't know what I'd be giving up. I was scared. It was easier to walk away than face the mess we were in. But I see it now. I see the hurt. And I've carried it with me, a weight I can't shake," he confessed. The quiet honesty in his voice seemed to resonate, shifting something in the atmosphere between them. The crowd was now just a backdrop, their excitement fading into whispers, as if witnessing a fragile moment unfold. Andrea studied him, and for the first time, her hardened expression wavered. Jake hoped to catch a glimpse of the love that had once illuminated her eyes. "What are you going to do, then?" she challenged softly. "Drop everything and fix this? How can I be sure you won't just run again?" Jake felt the weight of her words press down on him. This was at the moment he had yearned for, and he knew if he stepped back now, he could lose her forever. "I won't run. I promise. No matter how hard it gets, I'll stay and fight for us." A flicker of something danced across her face, curiosity, perhaps? Maybe even a hint of hope? But doubt quickly clouded it over again. "To change takes more than words, Jake," she said, shaking her head. "It takes everything. It takes hurting when things get tough. Are you ready for that?" "I am," he insisted, his pulse racing as he reached out, hesitating just a moment before closing the distance between them. "I've learned that the hardest climbs often lead to the most beautiful views. I don't expect it to be easy, but with you, it's worth the fight." Andrea's breath caught slightly, and he could see that she was finally considering it, weighing the sincerity of his words against everything they had lost. The crowd around them faded as the universe seemed to shrink, leaving just the two of them on this precipice of possibility. For a moment, words escaped her, and Jake feared that he had overshot his mark. Just when he thought all hope was lost, she spoke again, her voice lower but firm. "You want a second chance? Show me you're serious. There are no shortcuts this time." "Then I'll show you," he declared, an unexpected swell of courage flooding through him. He could feel every ounce of his determination igniting like a flame. He would do whatever it took to erase the past and build something real. But just as he felt a spark of victory, Andrea tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Be careful what you wish for, Jake. Because what comes next might test every part of you." As she said those words, the crowd leaned in, breathless with anticipation. Jake took a steadying breath, preparing for the uncertain path ahead, one that could lead to their redemption or their ruin. Did he have what it took to face the challenge she was hinting at? And would it shatter the fragile hope he clung to so desperately? Jake stood on the precipice of that uncertainty, heart racing, the weight of his past firmly entwined with his future. Andrea's gaze held him captive, a mixture of challenge and unspoken memories swirling between them. He had spent so long hiding from himself, and now confronted by the echoes of what they once shared, he felt a flicker of resolve ignite within him. "Whatever it takes," he said, his voice steady but raw with emotion. "I'll prove it to you. I'm not the same man I was, Andrea. I want to fight for you, for the community, for myself." She searched his eyes, and in that quiet storm, Jake realized this was not just a battle for forgiveness, it was a chance for both of them to redefine who they could be. "I want this to be about healing for both of us, and for those who trusted us," he continued. "Just give me that chance." The room felt electric, the crowd leaning inward, anticipation tinged with the scent of vulnerability. Andrea hesitated, and in that moment, a connection sparked. "I'm willing to see where this goes," she said softly, a crack in her armor revealing a side he hadn't seen in years. "But don't think it'll be easy. Pain-ache has to be faced, not avoided. Isn't that what we're both here to do? To face it together?" His heart raced, the words pouring out like a tidal wave breaking against a dam. Then, as if the universe conspired in their favor, the storm clouds outside began to clear, softening into hues of twilight. It signified the dawn of something new, a space where healing could happen. The room erupted into applause, the initial tension melting away, replaced by a sense of collective hope. Clara's supportive smile beamed like a lighthouse in the storm, Sarah and Luke nodding in understanding as if witness to a transformation they all had sought. "Together, we can rebuild this town and ourselves," Jake declared, voice booming, bolstered by the energy swirling around him. "Let us embrace the fight, every scar we've earned, every lesson learned, so we can rise above and create something beautiful." Moments passed, and Jake's determination felt like solid ground beneath him, steady, unwavering. People began sharing near how they could come together, throwing ideas into the collective fire that had sparked since Jake entered his hometown. One man stepped forward passionately. "Let us mobilize support for our healthcare workers. They need us now more than ever." Another chimed, "And our youth. We need to foster their growth." Countless voices harmonized, creating a symphony of support. Hope wrapped around them like blankets of warmth, each idea crystallizing into concrete steps forward. Jake turned to Andrea, their shared moment brewing a flicker of understanding. "This isn't just about the past anymore, it's about shaping tomorrow." "Then let us do this," she said, the resolve in her tone galvanizing him. The crowd buzzed with excitement, renewed trust blooming in the atmosphere like spring flowers breaking through the winter frost. Clara took Jake's hand tightly, her presence infusing him with courage, affirming that he was not alone in this fight for redemption. But even amid this collective spirit, Jake knew challenges lay ahead, a touched nerve, a shared memory. He steeled himself for those moments and stepped into them with head held high, ventured into the uncertainty with a sense of purpose. Days morphed into weeks, the warmth of community wrapping around every initiative they launched. Jake found himself at the heart of each effort, tirelessly committing to local outreach, guiding programs, partnering with organizations, and gathering stories that brought smiles to faces long hollowed out from neglect. Watching people connect, share joy, and even find hope was nothing short of magic. One afternoon, as he strolled through the local park, the joyful laughter of children echoed around him, pulling at his heartstrings. Suddenly, he spotted a familiar figure, a small girl with unruly hair, giggling among friends. "Hey, are you listening?" Clara nudged him, bringing him back to the moment. "You're making all this possible." Jake turned toward her, feeling gratitude swell within him. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Their eyes locked, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. Together they had transformed doubts into hope, pain into purpose. As Jake stood there in the soft glow of dusk, he realized he had come full circle, a billionaire who once chased fleeting success now firmly planted in the heart of his community. No longer lost among numbers and deals, he found peace in the faces surrounding him, resilience coiled in shared laughter, heartache shared in silent understanding, love woven into the fabric of every connection. Feeling the tide of community lift him up, Jake resolved to continue his journey forward, not just for himself, but for them. The presence of both Andrea and Clara lingered in his heart, threaded into the tapestry of his past and present. He was ready to embrace whatever came next, armed with a newfound sense of purpose and belonging. Jake took a deep breath, filling himself with the fresh air around him, grateful for this second chance at life, a chance to heal, to grow, and to share a love that could guide their hearts homeward. This is where it begins. The story of a new kind of legacy, a legacy defined not by wealth but by connection, compassion, and the courage to transform. So, what do you think? You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more stories like these. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this tale of transformation. Comment below your reactions and feelings. Let us chat about this emotional journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Tell them to join this incredible community. Your support makes all the difference.